Hey, before we start, quick review on where we've been. We've been saying that there is a way forward this fall. There is. And the way forward is up in prayer. The way forward is in with people. The way forward is down with perseverance. Last week we talked about how the way forward is around with perspective. And today is the fifth and final principle. We're going to lift from the life of Moses and apply it to our life. It's a really, really important principle, and here it is. The way forward is out with purpose. There it is. The way forward is out with purpose. Try saying that with me at every single watch party right now. The way forward is out with purpose. The antidote for discouragement, the solution for discouragement is not the pleasures of this world. No, it's actually the purposes of God. This is the antidote for the discouragement that we feel. The way forward is not out with your plans. All right, we got to know this. If we've learned anything since March, we've learned how fragile our plans actually are. So no, the way forward is not out with our plans, but it is out with purpose. The way forward is out with purpose. But here's what we got to get clear on. When you start reading about purpose, looking up purpose online, you're going to find there's been a lot written about purpose. There can be a lot of viewpoints of purpose. I want to share with you a biblical understanding of what a God-given purpose is all about. And to do that, I'm going to give you a very simple definition. We're going to keep it really, really simple. Here it is. I want to define purpose this way. Purpose is for me, but not about me. Isn't that fun? Purpose is for me, but not about me. Try saying that with me. I dare you. On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Purpose is for me, but not about me. This is how all the greats have seen and understood purpose. I think of William Wilberforce. I think of Elizabeth Elliot. I think of Martin Luther King Jr. I think of Moses himself. This is how they saw and understood purpose. In fact, I think if we would have asked them, hey, when you think of purpose, what do you think? I think this is what they would have said. I think they would have said, purpose is for me, but it's not about me. Let's break this definition down into two parts. Let's first start with purpose is for me. At every single watch party right now, come on, raise your hand if purpose is for you. Come on. Now, I can't see your hands, but I hope at every single watch party, filling driveways, back patios, garages, hands are in the air. I hope neighbors are getting a little worried, like, what in the world is going on at Catherine Risalvo's house right now? Hands are up in the air. Why? It's because, bro, purpose is for you. It really is. Listen, no matter who you are, no matter what you did last year or last night, there is a God-given purpose for you. There really is. Purpose is for me, and it's for you. For some, and certainly at different points in my life, I found that very hard to believe. I found it, quite honestly, very difficult to believe that God had a purpose for my life. And if that's you, if you would say, I'm not sure I want to raise my hand, I just want you to know there's some good news, because Moses, the life story that we've been studying, there was actually a 40-year period of his life where he would have said, yeah, I'm not sure about purpose. It's probably for other people, but I'm just not sure it's for me. What we're going to be looking at today is a story from Exodus chapter 3. It's a really critical story within the life of Moses. Exodus chapter 3, we'll start in verse 1. It says this. It says, now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro. Everyone say Jethro. That's a fun one. Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. The priest of Midian. That should cause some curiosity. You hear Midian, you would say, wait a second, I thought Israelites, they were in Egypt. What's Moses doing in Midian? Also, he's now beyond 40 years old. Why doesn't he have his own flock? I think that's a really good question, right? What is he doing mooching off of Jethro, his father-in-law? I mean, at this point in his life, shouldn't he kind of have his own thing going for him? Well, there's actually a lot going on within the backdrop of this story that's critical for us today. The way that we can break down Moses' life story is into really thirds, each third representing 40 years each. The first third, the first 40 years of Moses' life, you could title that chapter The Palace. He was actually raised in Egypt in the palace. In fact, this is what Acts 7, verse 22 says of the first third of his life. It says, Moses was taught all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and he was powerful in both speech and action. He had the best education on planet Earth at that time. He was raised in the palace. Moses had serious A game going for him. So many things were up and to the right until one day. Moses saw one of his fellow Israelites being mistreated by an Egyptian, and he actually flew off the handle. He flew off the handle. He took the justice of God into his own hands, and it didn't work out for him. He actually murdered a man. He buried him in the sand, and in that moment, Moses was a man on the run. He was Moses, the murderer, in that moment. This led him into the middle third of his life, which I'll come back to in just a second. What we've been looking at over the past number of weeks is really the final third of his life, the final 40 years of his life. We could label that or title that final 40 years the wilderness. This is where most people, when they think of Moses, they think of these moments in his life. In the wilderness, he was leading 2 million people toward the promised land. So many things happen in the wilderness, but so many important things were about to take place right in the middle third. This middle third of 40 years is what you can title the desert. He's there in Midian. He's tending sheep that are not his own. Moses, in this moment, it's so important and it really connects to purpose and how it's for you in this moment. He's alone with his thoughts. He's counting sheep and he's remembering the biggest mistake of his life in this moment. Can you imagine the thoughts that are running through his mind? Can you imagine the self-talk going on? Why, Moses? Why did you fly off the handle? Why couldn't you just stayed calm? Why didn't you just look the other direction? Can you imagine the kind of things that Satan was spewing in the mind of Moses? Moses, your story is over. Moses, it's too late. Moses, you're disqualified. Imagine the frustration. Imagine the disappointment. Imagine the shame. For some of you, you don't have to imagine that much, do you? This middle third, mid-story is exactly where your story is right now. Some of you right now, when you think of your past, you believe that it's actually too much for your future. Some of you would say, when it comes to purpose, I think it is for other people, but not so much for you because of what you did or didn't do. And I want you to know, if you're mid-story, if you're in the desert, if you're out there alone, oftentimes what happens in the desert is big questions bombard your mind. Big questions fill your mind. Huge questions like, is God even real? Will I spend the rest of my life in Midian? Did I blow my chances of being used by God? Is a new beginning even possible? Will I be tending sheep for the rest of my life? If God is good, how could this have happened? Is there purpose for me? After all, big questions, mid-story. And if that's you, I want to be really clear. Big questions aren't the problem. Processing those big questions in isolation is. Simply put, you don't have to. You don't have to process those big questions of life all alone. We want to help you with that. In fact, I kind of want to hit pause on this talk right now and talk to some of you that would say right now, yeah, I'm pretty sure there is a God-given purpose for those people, but not for me because of my past. Your mid-story. Listen, for those of you watching right now that are processing some of the big questions of life in isolation, you don't have to. There's actually a place uniquely designed for you. It's called the Alpha Course. Listen, over 30 million people around the world have decided to no longer process the big questions of life and faith and meaning in isolation. No, they have tried out the Alpha Course. I would love for you to do it. I've gone through it 7 times. It is incredibly helpful. You can get registered today for the Alpha Course. Just talk to the host of your watch party. They can tell you about Alpha. They can show you kind of the next steps on how to get registered. You can come here to our building to experience Alpha, or you can stream it right to your apartment, to your dorm room, or to your home. I want you to no longer process the big questions of life alone. But I think you'll be amazed at what happens when you process those big questions of life with others. This is so important. In fact, I even want to say this to some of our high school students. This fall is troubling. This fall, perhaps you're processing questions you've never processed before. We have something called Student Alpha. It's about to start. We're hoping for 100 high school students that will be here outside on our front porch. If you're a high school student, man, we want to come alongside you. There is an environment for you that's fun, that has free food, and other high school students. We're together. You guys can ask any question. You can process those big questions of life. Chapter 3. That we're looking at right now. Here's what we learn. As for purpose, the desert can be a graveyard, but also a birthplace. It can also be a birthplace for a God-given purpose. I want you to look at verse 10. Verse 10. Here's what's going on. The nation of Israel, they'd been in slavery for 480 years. Generation after generation was praying and waiting for God to do something. No doubt, night after night, Moses must have wondered, when will it happen? And by whom will this take place? Who, after all, will stand up to Pharaoh? How will God intervene? How and when will the hand of God be outstretched to set the people free? And the answer to those questions Moses never saw coming. Check this out in verse 10. God says to Moses these words, "Now go, I am sending you, Moses, to the most powerful person on planet Earth, Pharaoh." I mean, this was the most shocking words Moses ever dreamed that he would hear. He never anticipated encountering God in this moment. He never had on his calendar, there as he was watching sheep in Midian, that God was going to speak to him a God-given purpose. In this moment, Moses embraced a God-given purpose. He discovered what I pray you are discovering right now. Purpose is for me. Purpose is for me. Purpose is for me. As you make that discovery, some of you already have. You've discovered a God-given purpose. I want to spend just a minute making sure you understand something about a God-given purpose. It actually is kind of like Baskin-Robbins. Show of hands, how many of us love ice cream? Baskin-Robbins, as you know, has like tons and tons of flavors. Well, a God-given purpose is kind of like that. There's so many different varieties of a God-given purpose. For Moses, it was to lead God's people out of slavery. For Nehemiah, it was to put on his work boots day in and day out and rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Not a single miracle, by the way, is recorded in Nehemiah, just flat out hard work. For Esther, it was to become a queen. For Tommy, it was to become an underwear model. So here's what you need to know, all right? So a God-given purpose, it comes in all kinds of different varieties. For you, it might be to become a mechanic, or to remain a teacher, or to be a coach, or to be a grandparent that shows up when it matters most. Could be to be a business owner or an athlete. Perhaps it's to be an advocate for the marginalized. It could involve writing a book or starting a nonprofit. There's a young 20-something in our church. She's been part of our faith community since day one. She was on our staff for a couple years, and she left our staff to pursue her God-given purpose. Her name is Hannah Gronowski, and she means so much to me and so much to my family. And what's really cool is next week, her book is dropping for the masses to pick up, order, buy, read. If you are in your 20s, or if you know someone in your 20s, man, I want you to pick this book up because it is talking about a generation that can be distinct. The book, I actually got an advanced copy, and I was reading it and been reading it, like so proud of her. I mean, she's now an author and a founder of her own nonprofit, and she doesn't even have a mortgage yet. This is amazing. So for some of you, it could be to write. For others, it could be for you to go to college or to go back to college. It could be grad school. It could be even planting a church. And if that's you, then I have a therapist that I would recommend for you. I don't know what kind of the flavor or the variety of your God-given purpose might be. The truth is there's thousands of kinds of purpose. But here's what I want you to know. There's only one point of your purpose. I could line up 1,000 different people in this room, all that have received a God-given purpose, and you'll hear all kinds of different nuance. But if I were to keep asking and keep drilling down on that God-given purpose, you would see, and yet there is just one point of all of our God-given purposes, and that leads us to the second part of our definition. Purpose is for me, but look at this next part, but not about me. Purpose is for me, but not about me. Hey, at every watch party right now, I want you to raise your hand if purpose is about you. Hopefully the hands came down. At first pass, you may be saying, hey, Pastor Guy, I really like the talk until that. And I think this just makes you normal. It just makes us human. In some ways, I think we kind of want it to be about us, right? But here's the thing. I want you to do some inventory. When have been the moments in your life where you have felt most fulfilled? Like, check it out. When have been the moments in your life where the joy has lasted more than 2 hours? When you actually woke up with a sticky kind of joy lasting throughout the night. When were those moments? Here's what you will find. You will find those were the moments when you willingly gave your life away to bless the life of another. Purpose is for me, but not about me. Moses was about to experience the same in verse 10. Right now, go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. Look at this next part. You must lead, look at this next part, my people. You must lead my people, Israel, out of Egypt. God could have said to Moses, your people, and that would have been true. It was his people, but God doesn't say that. God says, no, my people. And I think because God wanted to make sure Moses understood something about this God-given purpose, it was for Moses, but not about Moses. In fact, the final third, 40 years, the wilderness of Moses' story, I talked a little bit about it, but read about it. Man, you're going to see what happened in this God-given purpose, the amount of love that flowed through his life, the amount of patience, the amount of intercession. In fact, Moses himself would never even occupy the land, the promised land that he was leading the nation of Israel to. He never even occupied it himself. Talk about a purpose that was for Moses, but not about Moses. This is so important. In many ways, this is where we part ways with a cultural understanding of purpose. A biblical understanding of purpose helps us understand that it is not about me. There's plenty of people who are purpose-driven yet painfully empty. Perhaps you know some of them. Perhaps you are some of them, right? Their purpose isn't a means to an end. No, it's become the end. And their lack of joy and lack of generosity prove it. A little nursery rhyme, theological nursery rhyme, I've been teaching my kids, goes like this. I want to teach you guys. It's really fun. I want to teach it to you, and I think it's going to be really helpful. Here it is. My and me is not the end of Christianity. Isn't that fun? It's a theological nursery rhyme. Here it is. My and me is not the end of Christianity. Why is that? Well, it's because the logo, the icon of our faith is a cross, not a mirror. Have you noticed this? How many of you are wearing around your neck right now a mirror? How many of you in your home, right? You've just got like all these mirrors all over the place. Well, maybe you have mirrors to look into, but many of you have crosses. Why? Well, that's the logo of our faith. It's a cross, not a mirror. Why is that? Well, Jesus Christ modeled this. He modeled what love actually looks like in public. Love isn't a retention pond. It's a river. It's always moving out, flowing out to touch others, expanding out to bless more people. My and me is not the end of Christianity. In my and me, by the way, it's actually a pretty terrific place to start. It's really important for you to understand how loved you are by God. It's important for you to understand that and start there, that you were first loved by God. So my and me is a terrific place to start, but it's a tragic place to end. Why? Well, my and me is not the end of Christianity. In fact, if you were to ever come to our building, I hope you do at some point in the near future, you will see on the outside of our auditorium our three values. In huge black letters, it says gather, grow, and go. It does not say gather, grow, and gather again. Why is that? Well, my and me is not the end of Christianity. In fact, we believe God has a God-given purpose for you, but you got to understand, it's not about you. When it comes to purpose, there's thousands of kinds of purpose, but there's one point. There's one point of your purpose, and here it is. I want you to write this down. The point of your purpose is for the blessing to go out and the praise to go up. There it is. That is the point of a God-given purpose, for the blessing to go out and the praise to go up. I'm seeing that happen all around our church in a lot of different ways, but specifically through our missional communities. When you go on mission, in many ways that we look at it as an aircraft carrier moment, it's when you are launched with others on mission in the missional community, and we're seeing that happen. I think of one of our missional communities. They're now hosting a happy hour in their driveway on Fridays for their neighbors. Life is tough right now. They're showing up for their neighbors. I think of Tommy and Jess Bowman. Their watch party is becoming an alpha watch party. Same is happening for me and Kelly, which is super cool. I think of the missional community that we have for 20-somethings. Those in their 20s. Right now, I think it was last week, 25 of them got together just to make sure, hey, we are going to go through this thing together, not in isolation. I think of those who've been doing grocery shopping for those who are immune compromised in our community. How awesome is that? They're grocery shopping and bringing the groceries. What is that? Well, that is a kind of Christianity that actually looks like Christ, right? It is a purpose that is for them, and it's not about them. I think of the Keeneyville Elementary Missional Community, Sarah Bruno and your crew. The school that they're serving, the principal said, hey, here's the one need we have. Would you be willing to build a care closet so we can begin to organize coats and different things that these kids that are totally in need? We need to organize it. So Sarah and her crew showed up, and they built this care closet at the elementary school. The principal is so excited about it, and now they're looking into school supplies. Amazing what God is doing there. I think of our missional communities that have partnered with Crossroads Kids Club. As you know, schools are closed, most at least in this community. And so Crossroads was closed at the school. But listen to this. We have two missional communities that said, hey, yeah, the school building might be closed, but we'll open up our backyard. No kidding. Mike and Christy Merrill and their missional community, they've been having 15 kids in their backyard every week. Just this past Wednesday night, another amazing way that they're able to serve these kids. And I just heard from the Worsings that they're doing the same thing. They're about to have 15 kids at their Crossroad Kids Club in their backyard as well. What is that, man? That is the church on the move. What is it? That is a God-given purpose. What is that? That is people that are saying, listen, I'm not only a recipient of grace, but I want to be a conduit of grace. What is that? That is aircraft carrier kind of Christianity. That is people that are gathering, growing, but also going. What is that? That is purpose. That is for me, but not about me. Listen, perhaps you didn't see the breaking news, but here it is. Purpose is not canceled this fall. I don't know if you read that news article, right? Purpose is not canceled this fall. So here's my question. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do when it comes to finding your way forward out with purpose? Here's a few things you can do. Some of you that have yet to discover like what a God-given purpose might even be, I want you to register for the Alpha course. You are going to discover the ultimate purpose that God has for your life. Get registered. You can stream it. You can attend it here. We have like 100 people, I think, that are going to be attending the Alpha course. Amazing. Why don't you do that? For others, you're like, man, I wonder what the purpose is of this church called Mission Church. You can do that through our partner course. We got a whole bunch of folks that are already registered. Why not you? Get registered. Discover what the purpose is for our church. Others like, okay, but I want to know my unique purpose. Well, guess what? We have the Planter course. You can get registered right now to discover your own unique purpose and what it looks like for you to go and live that out with others. It's not perfect. It's not totally thorough, but it is pretty good. We have 3 courses, Alpha, Partner, and Planter. Why don't you get registered right now? The bottom line is this. I want you to do something. I want you to do something. If you want to be something different this fall, how about you do something different this fall? How about you receive this God-given purpose and then you live it out for the good of others and for the glory of God? When you do, you'll be reminding me of a story that captivated my heart a number of years ago. This story is an incredible story. It's a story of a church in San Diego. And in San Diego, this church, for years and years outside of it, had this huge statue of Jesus. Pretty cool idea. And the hands of Jesus were outstretched to the city. Really cool, right? And they just wanted this huge statue to make a statement that Jesus is here to love and serve the city. And so that statue was there in front of this church for years and years until 1980. In a moment, in the middle of the night, vandals, I mean, crazy to think, but vandals actually approached this statue, climbed up the statue, and broke off the hands of Jesus. No kidding, you can look it up. And so the church, they began to meet for days and days, trying to think through what should we do? How should we reconstruct this? How do we rebuild the hands of Jesus? And what they ended up doing was this. They ended up making the decision to not rebuild the hands of Jesus. Instead, they put a huge plaque in front of it saying this, I have no hands but yours. I have no hands but yours. Friends, I believe that is what Jesus is saying to us. I believe that's what he's saying to your watch party. I believe that's what he's saying to our church. I have no hands but yours. In fact, God, he wants your hands to do his work. Purpose is for me, but it's not about me. Purpose is something that when we join Jesus, it's amazing. The blessing, man, it goes out. And the praises go up. Friends, there is a way forward this fall. And that way forward is out with purpose. But don't forget, Purpose is for you, but not about you. So may the blessings go out and the praises go up, because make no mistake, Mission Church, He has no hands but yours. I'll see you next week.